I'm thinking, I've never been to Windsor, Canada. I don't know if anyone else has ever been there. So we, looking it up on Google, find out it's only 2.5 hours away. Thinking, all right, that's probably worth the drive. So we're driving into Detroit. And before I go any further, I want to mention there's a lot of stereotypes about the city of Detroit. Probably some of them are accurate. I love Detroit. Some of the best people I've ever met in this business come from Detroit. Some of my teammates who work with me at K&M Tire they hail from Detroit as well. So before I go any further, I do love the city of Detroit. So for anybody who's from the D-town, I'm not picking on you here. But I couldn't help but look around and think about what could have been, or what was. At one point in time, Detroit actually accounted for about 36% of the world's GDP. It was the manufacturing capital of the world. And so for me, it lives as a sort of living, breathing monument to what was, what could be. Back up about half a year, I had a chance to go out to visit some family in California. So I rented a car, we drive up the PCH, right? Anyone's ever made that drive, it's incredible. If you haven't, I encourage you to do it. So we end up going through Silicon Valley, where all these Facebook and Twitter and all those companies are. And I'm looking around and I'm thinking, well, this is the center of the world. This is the tech center of the world. So whereas Detroit really represented for me sort of like the industrial age, what has been and what could be, Silicon Valley sort of represents the cutting edge of what's next. And I couldn't help but make that analogy. So for our businesses, you want to be Detroit, you want to be Silicon Valley. I'm not saying you got to be on Facebook or invent the next social media platform. My point is this: what do you want out of your business? Do we want to embrace what worked for us in the past, or do we want to look forward to what could be? So I've got a number of things that dear old Dad and I are going to talk about with everyone here today, and I'm really excited to bring a couple of these to you. So we're going to talk about your most important asset as a small business owner. We're going to talk about the importance of communication. We're going to talk about finding your business strategy, not trying to be everything to everyone. We're also going to talk about finding our purpose as an organization. We're going to talk a little bit about culture. Right? Every one of our businesses has a culture, and it ends up being what's most important to us. I'm going to turn things over to Craig, my dad, and he's going to talk about being a coyote. What does that mean? We're going to round things out by talking about a couple of social marketing cues. And maybe you heard Darren, if anyone was in here before, the session before talking about marketing, he may have mentioned these before. We're going to hit on them and talk about why those things are so important. So the first thing that I want to kind of get into is the people, your most important asset as an organization. It frankly is not the tires that we sell. It's not the things that we do. All those things are absolutely important. The services that we offer to our customers. But it goes more than just what and how we do. It goes back to why we do what we do. If anyone's taking notes out there, this would be a book that I would write down. It's called Start With Why. And it's by a guy named Simon Sinek, and it's an awesome, awesome book. And I want to mention, too, you've got a couple of handouts there in front of you. You could sit there and take tedious notes, and I would certainly appreciate that, but you don't need to do that. So I'm giving you all the key takeaways right there. Doesn't mean you can leave right now. There's still some things we're going to cover. But I also want to mention, again, if you're writing stuff down, if you go to jeffwallick.com at noon today local time, all of these documents, including the presentation, will automatically post to that website. You can go there. Down below, there's a little form. You can enter your name, your email address, and anything that you have questions about. And my dad and I will stick around afterwards. If anyone wants to pick our brain about anything, we'll be here. But if you have a question, you don't feel comfortable asking it right here, or you think about it back when you get to the shop on Monday morning, go to that website, jeffwallick.com, enter in your message, and I'm going to get back to every single one of you. If it's something that I can personally help you with, I'm going to. If it's something that it's maybe not my wheelhouse, I'm going to find somebody from the K&M Tire team to help you with that. But if you message me, there's a 100% probability I will get back to you, and I'm going to do everything that I possibly can to help you with whatever challenges that you have in your business. So with that said, March of 2014, I had a chance to take on a new opportunity at K&M. I used to be the national marketing manager for K&M, and I loved that job. I had a chance to work with probably a couple of thousand independent tire dealers like yourselves for about 2.5 years, and I loved it. Got to work with our sales team, and it was fantastic. So one of the things that really afforded me was the opportunity to work with lots of dealers just like yourselves. I know what works, I know what doesn't work, and I get that every market's probably a little bit different, but there's a lot of commonalities, probably more than we all want to recognize. And that's the impetus for what we're going to talk about today. That's what really started all of this. What works, what doesn't work, how can we help you grow your business? So I left that marketing job to take on a new role in our brand new training and development department. So right now I'm working on a program called K&M University, and it's aimed at helping our people become better at what they do, so that what K&M Tire can do is better for you each and every day, dedicating ourselves to continuous improvement. It's huge. Which is really another way of saying I left a job I was pretty good at for a job that I was pretty bad at for a while there, and it's gotten a lot better. But training is really important. We're going to talk a little bit about that today. If you have training, not issues, if you have training challenges, if that's something you could use in your business, make sure you go to jeffwallick.com, enter in a little note, and I'm going to get back to you. Whatever I can do to help, I'm going to. So my experience in the tire industry starts at a tiny retail store in Akron, Ohio, back near my hometown. It was called Parrish McIntyre, for anybody who's familiar with the area. We had a distribution center, we did some wholesaling, tried to at least. We had 3 retail stores, and that's actually where our K&M Tires VP of sales got his start as well. So the one thing that I remember working at the retail store was every once in a while during the summer when things would get sort of heated up, or especially in the fall too, when things would get really, really busy, they'd send the kid over to work in the warehouse. And the warehouse was not a fun place to work. It was hard work. So there were guys, and I was 17 at the time, that were 2, and there was actually a guy who was 3 times as old as I was, and they would repeatedly outwork me. And I'm a little bit frustrated to say that today, but I learned a lot from that stuff. But the one thing that really stands out to me is the owner of that company. He was a really big guy. He's like 6'6", and a multimillionaire in his own right, wildly successful business owner. He was out there in the trenches each and every day with us. He had a clipboard. He was sweating with us. He'd say, I want those 8 tires on that truck, and we'd go do it. I came to work at K&M Tire, and I can tell you, just this past November, I'm going to pick on Cheryl a little bit here. She's going to get red in the face, but Cheryl, our vice president, and her father Ken, the president of K&M Tire, when things were a little bit crazy, we were out in the warehouse pushing tires, handling our transfer trucks, and it's easy to work for those people. And I don't need to tell you that. Most of the best independent dealers that I've ever worked with have been hands-on people, right? And that's an important message. You're sending your people a message. I'm not going to ask you to do anything that I'm not willing to do myself. And that's a powerful message. We need to remember that. But there's also another important message in there too, for us as independent dealers. We need to take the time to work on our businesses and not to let them work on us. And I don't know what that means. Maybe that means spending 2 hours a month looking at the financials, right? And those are things that we can help you with. If you need help with that, we can help you. Looking at your marketing metrics, right? So if you're spending, I don't know, 10 grand a year, I don't know what that's at, I'm pulling that number out. But if you're spending some money on marketing, do you know what's most effective? What's actually working for you? You probably have salespeople calling you and stopping by all week long. All right, we have salespeople who do the same thing, right? Trying to get you to spend money with them, but how do you know what's working for you? There's things that we can track. And if you need help with that, we can and we will, and we want to help. So the question for me when I talk about people strategy is, what are you doing today to invest in your company's most important asset? And that's putting the right people in the right seats. There was a book came out in like 2001. It was called Good to Great by a guy named Jim Collins. And that's what he talked about. He talked about finding the right people, getting them on your bus, and finding the right places for those people. Right? Let's just say you have I'm making this up again, but say you have another location that's going to open, and you have a really high potential person. You say, I think you could run that location. Give them that option. Give them the empowerment to go do that. And you know what? If things don't work out, set the example. Allow that person to go back to the position that they previously excelled at. We do it at K&M Tire all the time. If we have a brand new opportunity for someone that we view as high potential, we'll put them in that spot, right? And if it doesn't work out, we give them that option of going back to the previous position. It allows for a little more risk taking. That's what business is all about. I don't need to tell you that. You're independent business owners. Life is about risk. Risk is inherent. Next thing I want to talk about is our communication strategy. Communication is one of those things, and we all have one. And the unfortunate part is most of them are not that great, or maybe that's a broad or a general statement. Maybe there's some things that we can improve on in our communication. So I draw back to my time in a retail environment, and hopefully if things are going well at your locations, you've got 3 or 4 people in front of you, right? Customers that need some help. You've got the phones ringing off the hook. We've all been there, probably this past fall. I would imagine a lot of you guys are busy. And it's at those times, ask yourself, how am I communicating with my team? Under times of duress, when things are stressful, am I putting the necessary emphasis on communicating with my people the right way? Think about that. And it's probably not a question that there's an answer to right here and right now, but as you hop on the planes here later this weekend, or if you're sticking around Dallas, whenever you head back home, get to your shop on Monday morning, Tuesday morning, whatever it happens to be, ask yourself that question. Am I communicating with my people as effectively as I possibly can? When I think about communication, I also kind of think about some goals. So for K&M Tire, one of our goals for 2014 and heading into 2015 is to improve that communication. So for anyone whose business has grown, and I would imagine that's probably the majority of everyone in this room over the past 5 years, right? Think about some of those growing pains. What are some of the challenges that you face in your business today? And how do those affect your people? How can communication play a role in improving your business? The other thing that I think of when I talk about communication is dialogue, right? So not just talking at my people, but also getting feedback from them. Dialogue is a two-way street. Anyone can bark orders. Anyone. But it takes a real leader to listen. It's one of the most powerful lessons I've ever learned in my life, is the ability to just listen. We have one mouth, two ears. Let's use them that way. And that's tough to do sometimes, especially when things are crazy. I get it. I've been in your shoes, if only for a short amount of time, for a couple of years, but I get it. The retail environment is nuts. And if it's nuts, that means things are going really well. That's what we want. But it's during those times we need to really focus on those leadership skills, those communication skills, making sure our people are the most important person in our business, and customers too. When I talk about communication, so I think about an example that I just read recently. I don't know if anybody reads Forbes magazine, Fortune magazine, but one of the things that recently hit the news is Coca-Cola, one of the largest companies in the world, right? Talked a lot about communication with their people. And they said, this is crazy that our communication needs to get better, right? So what do? They actually got rid of voicemail at their headquarters. And that sounds kind of crazy. I have voicemail on my phone. K&M Tire, we still use voicemail. I'm not saying you need to get rid of that stuff. But these are the things we need to start thinking about. How are people communicating today? Are your customers texting? We all texting, right? There's solutions out there where your customers can text you or go to your website and have a live chat. Those are things that are all options. I'm not saying you have to do those things. Pick out what's right for your business, but think about how not only your people are communicating, but also your customers. One of the companies that I try to follow, and I've read a couple of his books, Jack Welch from General Electric. He's the chairman of the company. So when he was the CEO, he was one of the most successful CEOs in the history of American business. He talked a lot about candor. And it's a lesson that I think we can all take to heart, right? So when things are tough, how are our people communicating with us? Are they telling us that things are hunky-dory, everything's perfect? Are they being honest with us? Right? The bigger any organization gets, the more difficult it is to find that honesty. And we call that a culture of candor. Again, I mentioned before, every single one of your companies has a culture. The question is it working for you or against you? What can you do to improve the culture of your company? So if let's say free ice cream on Fridays is important to you, that becomes part of your company culture. If communication is important to you, that becomes part of your company culture. What are you talking about consistently with your people? That's what your culture is. And it's the defining asset to your company. It's the one thing that your competitors can never, ever, ever take away from you, is the culture of your company. So again, is it working for you or against you? The third point that I want to talk about is what's our business strategy? You remember this company? Blockbuster? Do you want to be Blockbuster or Netflix? I'm not saying that you need to offer streaming movies online or offer DVD rentals. That's not what I'm saying. But my point is that there's a lesson in here for all of us. What a lot of people don't know about this story is that Netflix actually was for sale. So Blockbuster had the option of purchasing Netflix for pennies on what now amounts to the dollar for a cheap price. And they felt they recognized this as just a passing fad, right? It wouldn't stick. Well, I don't need to tell you who stock charts who's here. You know, it looks like it could be the same company, but that's what we see. Right? So again, I'm not saying that you need to offer DVD rentals. That's not my point. My point is that there's a lesson in here for all of us. Do we embrace what was, or do we embrace what could be? As I mentioned before, I'm going to turn things over to Craig here in just a bit. He's going to talk about being a coyote and being adaptable in our business. The world is always changing. For anyone who was, I guess, upstairs about an hour ago, 2 hours ago, right before Emmett Smith went on, we talked a little bit about never being there's not going to be a finish line in our business. There can't be. If we approach a finish line, it's time for us to turn a 180 and go find something new to do, right? Go find a new niche to cater to. There can never be a finish line. The business world, your business, your markets are constantly evolving. The demands of your customers are constantly evolving. I'm going to talk about here in a moment your sales strategy and your inventory strategy. Are we embracing the things that used to work for us, or are we noticing trends? The best thing that we can do is to notice trying to get out ahead of it. If you're, and this is just an open question, nobody has to answer this, but think about who your greatest competitor is. If you're anything like some of the people that I've talked to before, some of the independent dealers I've talked to before, I hear about Walmarts of the world, and Sam's Club, and Costco, and all those things. And I'm not saying they don't sell tires, because they certainly do. That's not your customer. The folks who are going to buy their tires from the same place they buy their meat are probably not going to come to you in the first place. That's not your customer. Play your game. If you try to out-Walmart, you're going to lose that game 100 times out of 100 times. So the good part is, the beautiful part is, you don't have to play that game. You can play your own game. You can create your own market. You don't have to compete against the big boys. You can be the big boy in whatever market you choose to. There's a couple of things I want to talk about here as far as our sales strategy goes. And when I think of sales strategy, I think about what I have in stock, right? For K&M Tire, we've got 18 locations. We've got a little over 1.8 million square feet of warehouse space. We have 170 delivery trucks. We have 40 transfer trucks. And I'm not sitting up here bragging about anything. I'm telling you, there's a point in all this. It's tough for us to stock all the right stuff in the right places at the right time. Our vehicles travel 35,000 miles a day to do it. You can't be everything to everyone. I know a lot of you have really, really nice locations. I've been to probably some of them, and I've been to many really nice locations for some dealers and customers who are not here today. But you can't be everything to everyone, right? We, as in the manufacturers and the distributors of the world over the past 5 or 10 years, have done a really good job of convincing you don't need to stock tires. But the truth is you do. You don't need to stock what you used to. If you've been in the business for a long time, maybe you kept a couple thousand tires in stock. I'm not saying you need to do that. But my point is that you got to have something in stock. So how do you do it? There's a couple of tools that I really, really like. And for anyone who was here yesterday, Goodyear sponsored a session. They talked about a PSO report, Product Screen Optimizer. So what they actually do is they look at the vehicle registration in your market. You tell them, I pull customers from 5 or 10 miles away. They're going to say, no problem. They're going to scan all the vehicles in that registration that far out. And they're going to pick out all the top vehicles and tell you what's on those. OE sizes. So for me as a dealer, I'm going to look at a couple things. I want to know, number one, what am I selling today? What vehicles are in my market? And that's going to tell me my inventory strategy. What do I need to actually have in stock? Okay? And I know in some markets you can get tires delivered in an hour or two. And I'm not going to dispute that. I think that's a nice thing to have. If there's anything I can say, is that this millennial generation that we keep talking so much about, hearing so much about, they're not willing to wait. And so for me, I can tell you, as a millennial myself, 27, 28 years old, all my buddies, we're not willing to wait, right? So if they come into your store, they expect you to be the tire expert, to have the tires in stock. And if you say, that's no problem, I can get them in an hour or two. I'm going to go, that's no problem, I'll be back. I'm not coming back. Because I'm going to go to that chain store, right, that has a really nice website, and it looks nice on the outside. Am I saying that's the right thing to do? No. I'm not saying it's the right thing to do. I'm going to tell you right now that a transaction will be made that day. The question is, are you a part of that transaction or not? Do you need to stock a couple thousand tires? No. But you need to have some tires in stock. If you're going to be in the tire business, we need to have the right inventory. These are two really, really nice tools. In my life, we've probably run a couple hundred of these PSO reports, and I can tell you right now, they make the difference. To have the right stuff in stock. So there's a couple of companies that I try to follow, and you probably recognize a couple of these up here. So companies like Whole Foods, Zappos.com, Starbucks, Southwest Airlines, and Costco, right? Costco's sort of in the tire business, sort of not, but the others sell a bunch of different stuff. Zappos.com sells shoes and handbags and clothes and stuff online. Whole Foods sells organic food. Southwest Airlines is it's an airline company. My point is that there's things in here that we can learn from each and every one of them. I'm not saying you got to sell shoes online, but what can we learn from Zappos.com? They made their business on customer service. And they treat their people as the most important asset in their business. And they invest in that. Matter of fact, if you were to go work at Zappos.com in their customer care center, they'll actually pay you after they give you some training period. They say, you know what, at this point, we're going to offer you a job. You can be part of Zappos.com, but if you don't, if this is really not for you, we're going to pay you $5,000 to go away. That's how much they care about in their people. That's how much they believe in their people and having the right ones on board. Customer service. And they're not the least expensive option. A couple of years ago, they were bought by Amazon.com for a little over $1 billion. It's a valuable company, but there's a valuable lesson there for all of us. Customer care is number one. How about Starbucks? You're going to look at me like I'm crazy, but I'm not a coffee drinker myself, but Starbucks offers a double mocha frappa, I don't know what it is, but they charge like $8 for it, right? And there's people that go to Starbucks 3 or 4 times a week. There's some people that go to Starbucks more than once a day. So people are willing to pay $8 for a cup of coffee. People are willing to shell out for a premium set of tires. I'm not saying everybody will be, but people are willing to do those things, and there's a valuable lesson there. Starbucks today is one of the most valuable companies in the world. They've got more than 35,000 locations worldwide, I should say. And they've built it not on having the cheapest cup of coffee. It's a commodity product. Commodity product. As commoditized as it possibly gets, coffee, right? But they made a business out of offering a premium offering to their customers. Southwest Airlines, I would imagine anybody who flies fairly often is probably flown Southwest. They're not perfect, but generally speaking, they're pretty fun to fly. Matter of fact, I'm probably willing to give them a couple extra bucks to do what they do. And there's a powerful lesson in there as well. Can we be fun to do business with? I think we're taught over time to err on the side of formality, right? I was talking with my dad about what we should wear up here today, and he said, let's wear some suits. Right, but that's not me. I'm a tire guy, right? We're taught to err on the side of formality, but can we be fun to do business with? We always have to talk like a robot. And I'm not saying anybody does that, but you know, people come to you because you're real people. They want to work with you. They could go anywhere for tires, just like you could. And we recognize that at K&M Tire, and I think you do too. Be fun to do business with. So at this point, I want to transition a little bit. I'm going to talk about the 4 Ps. The 4 Ps of building our company culture. The first one I want to talk about is passion. When I think of passion, the term grit comes to mind for me. Grittiness. My willingness to overcome obstacles in my life. And when I think of grit, I don't know if anybody's an NFL fan in here, and I'm not personally a Denver Broncos fan, but I'm a Wes Welker fan. Wes Welker is one of the most successful wide receivers to ever play in the NFL. He's a guy who's maybe 5'11" on a good day. Throughout his life growing up playing high school football in Oklahoma, later in Texas, and then on to the pros, everyone he met told him he was too small. For anybody who saw the Emmitt Smith presentation, it was the same thing. He wasn't fast enough, he wasn't big enough, wasn't talented enough. But Wes Welker was determined to have a successful NFL career. And so here's this guy who they said was never going to be fast enough, never going to be big enough. 5'11" in the NFL, he's got an over a 10-year career. That's a guy who has grit. And there's a lesson in there for all of us. What are you going to do when life throws you a curveball? Business is not always going to be perfect. You probably know that better than I do. Right? There's going to be off years. But the real question is, how are you going to bounce back from those things? How are you going to overcome those obstacles in your life? There's a couple of key characteristics between the most successful people that you'll ever read about or ever hear about and the ones that never make it. And that's their ability to overcome obstacles. When life smacks you in the face, how are you going to react? The second one that comes to mind for me is performance. So of course I'm from Ohio. Nobody hold this against me. No, I'm in SEC country down here, right? But when I think of performance, I think about really showing up as an organization. It transcends just sports teams. You know, this is a business world as well. Are you fostering a culture of performance in your company? We can talk about culture and having a mission and having a purpose as a company till we're blue in the face. But if we don't perform, none of it matters. And a lot of that goes back to our financials. I mentioned before, working on your business, right? Are we taking some time? It doesn't have to be every week. Maybe it's once or twice a month. Are we looking at those things? We talk about cash flow a lot in our businesses. Cash is king, right? It's one of those things we've all heard about all of our careers. How can I dedicate the amount of cash it takes to put the right inventory in my stores if I'm not turning that stuff quick enough? So again, don't hold your hand up in the air. I'm just going to ask a broad question. If I were to ask you what your inventory turns were for 2014, could you tell me? And if you can't, that's an area of opportunity for your business. How often are you turning that inventory? That's cash. So the purpose of those 2 reports I showed you before, the PSO report from Goodyear and K&M sales reports, are to help you free up cash flow. Put the right stuff on the shelves, not just so they can sit there, but they can move for you. Free up cash flow, improve your inventory turns. And that goes back to a culture of performance. What are you doing to invest in the performance of your people? Training is an area we could all need help. We all could use some help. At K&M Tire, we've grown up. I think I was the 78th employee K&M ever hired, and I was hired back in 2011. We have a little over 500 employees now. We've grown quite a bit. I bet you that's a common story for a lot of you as well. Think about what you've asked your people to do over the past couple of years. Have you given them the training they need to be successful? And if the answer is no, that's okay. Well, what are you going to do from this point forward to change that? There's a lot of resources in our industry that provide great training to people. And it's not always free, but it's an investment into our company's most important asset. View every single day as an investment into your business, into your people. And again, that question comes back to what are you doing today to invest in your company's most important asset? I think about it. I mentioned before Southwest Airlines, and they do something pretty cool. So they have something they call Southwest University. We have K&M University. My boss is standing right over there. She might be able to figure out where that came from now. But so Southwest University recognizes that their people are the most important asset, right? Anybody can fly on an airline. It's a commoditized business as well, right? But people choose to fly Southwest Airlines. It's the most successful domestic airline in the industry today. People choose to fly Southwest because it's fun. Again, they're not perfect, but they're fun to fly with. It's statistically more difficult to get a job at Southwest Airlines than it is to get into Harvard University. It's an actual stat. It's the truth. So when they have job openings, they typically get 7,000% more applicants than they have jobs to fill. That's the truth. So when we have job openings available, are we getting the right and the best qualified candidates to come work for us? We can either hire tough and manage easy, or hire easy and manage tough. And I can tell you it's a whole lot easier to hire tough, make sure you have the right people on your team in the very beginning, and then manage easy. Take it easy on yourself. You all have a lot going on at any given time. A lot of balls up in the air at any given time. Give yourself that benefit of the doubt. Hire the right people. Make it easy to manage. The other thing I think of when I think of performance, right? So, again, my boss is, well, she's just leaving the room right now, but when I talk about working really hard at your job, right? And I think that's important, right? I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard in your job. But my point is I think we should always work harder on ourselves than we do on our jobs. So again, to clarify, I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard at work. I'm not saying that. How can you expect your people to be better than you if you're not continually bettering yourself? So the real question is, what can I do today to become 1% better than I was yesterday? Think about that. Over a 365-day period, we're 365% better than we used to be. And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't work hard at your business. That's a given. It's a prerequisite for success. Work hard. Work harder on yourself than you do on your business. There's lots of things that we can help you with at K&M Tire, lots of industry resources that can help you become a little bit better than you were yesterday. The other piece I want to talk about, again, is our people strategy. So it goes back to the conversation the CEO has with his president. The president says, what if we train our people and they leave us? And the CEO goes, what if we don't and they stay with us? We're investing in our company's most important asset. The training piece is huge. I can tell you, I'm not preaching at you here. At K&M Tire, there were some things that we didn't do well for a couple of years, and that was investing in our people. Earlier this year, we identified that as a trend. We said we've asked our employees to really step up and become great managers, to manage our business. We've asked some managers to step up and become leaders. Have we given them the tools and the resources to be successful? And at the end of the day, the answer was, I don't know. Maybe we haven't. So we created this brand new training program, and the company's made a significant investment into providing training opportunities for our people so they can become better at what they do, so that K&M Tire can provide for the most important person in our business. That's you. We ask ourselves every day, how can we get 1% better for you? We'll never be perfect. Ever, 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 we'll never be perfect. And I don't expect anyone in this room to ever be perfect either. But the real question is, what can you do today to be 1% better than you were yesterday? I talk a lot about purpose at K&M Tire. We talk a lot about it. So what's my purpose as an organization? My purpose for K&M, it's our vision statement, to be the leading and most trusted provider of tires and services. We talk a lot about that. Our mission statement, dedicating ourselves to continuous improvement, recognizing that there's never going to be a finish line. We always need to get a little bit better each and every day. We recognize that. And those are the things that drive us in our